You know, of the $2.3 trillion so-called infrastructure bill that he laid out yesterday, less than 6% of the spending in that bill actually goes towards roads and bridges, less than 6%. But then less than 5% is actually going to rural broadband. So it's very similar like the prior Biden bailout bill, where less than 9% went to shots and crushing the virus. Less than 6% is going to roads and bridges. Republicans would be happy to have an infrastructure bill that actually went towards roads and bridges, but that's not what happens here. We are, in my opinion, really entering an uncharted territory here with this level of spending. If you look at just the $2 trillion the president proposed yesterday, that will be 4 times what the country spent to build the entire interstate highway system. That I think should concern anyone. What's most concerning to you? What's it's being spent on, or how it's being paid for, or both? I think it's all of the above, because the fact that we're proposing $2.3 trillion of spending here, and that's 4 times the amount what we spent under today's dollars for the entire interstate highway system, yet only 6% of that entire $2.3 trillion, like I said, is being spent for roads and bridges. That's scary. If you take the proposed plans with the prior $6 trillion that's already been spent in the last year, that's more spending than the total combined wages of all American workers. That's a huge problem. And then you go into the tax front. The taxes that are proposed is the largest tax increases in the history of the United States. And if you look at how the taxes will work, you talk about what country will benefit. Countries like China and other countries like that, because it will increase our business rate to be higher than that of communist China. And I think that's an extreme problem.
Congressman Smith, the figures that you're citing are kind of hard to get your head around. The idea that they spent, this is going to be 5 times as much as what was spent to build the interstate highway system. I mean, that was back in the 50s, 70 years ago. Is that based on inflation-related comparisons, or is that just straight up what they spent versus what we're proposing to spend now?
No, it's based, and it's 4 times, not 5, but it's 4 times the amount of what would be the today's value of building the interstate highway system with inflation and everything. So that tells you how disturbing it is.
Wow.
Congressman, there's a lot of green stuff, and you know, the Journal has its own take on things, that this is Senator Warren and Senator Sanders' fingerprints all over this, or at least a big wish list of what's in this, which is something that probably is not, you know, you can argue about that, but at least that's the point that's being made. Part of the green initiatives, which I think is interesting, is the Journal says they want that the president wants to force-feed green energy on the electric grid. And that's all fine and good, and the transition is all fine and good, but it's going to take a lot of new high-voltage capacity power lines to transport solar energy one way and wind energy back the other way. And we can't get out of the first few pages of regulatory issues with environmentalists about even doing this. So the act of actually trying to transition to green energy is going to probably be very difficult, given that it's going to take a lot of infrastructure that is going to be blocked by the same environmental groups that would supposedly embrace it.
It will be very difficult, but this is supposed to be an infrastructure package about roads and bridges. That's what Republicans and Democrats, I think, could work together on in a bipartisan way to actually make sure that we rebuild our nation's highways and make sure we address our locks and dams. That's extremely important. If you want to talk about energy, I think it's less than 10% of all of our dams actually generate power. Why don't we do that? That would be a very safe, clean way to generate power that can help in a lot of instances. But that's not what this bill does. And I think that if Republicans and Democrats got together, we could work on that policy of roads and bridges. Now, when you're talking about hundreds of billions of dollars going towards Medicaid in this bill, that's unacceptable. Whether it's hundreds of billions of dollars going to housing, it should not be in an infrastructure bill. That should be a separate piece of legislation.
Shepard Smith here. Thanks for watching CNBC on YouTube.